What if the love you thought you'd buried forever walked back into your life on your wedding day? What secret from your college years could force you to question every choice you've made since? How does a mother's invitation turn a celebration into the moment you finally face your truth? Leo adjusted the black silk tie in the full-length mirror of the Los Angeles hotel suite, his hands steadier than his pulse. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, painting the room in soft gold. In less than 4 hours, he would stand under a flower-draped arch and promise forever to Jake, the kind, steady architect who had rebuilt him piece by piece after the wreckage of his 20s. Yet the reflection staring back felt like a stranger wearing his face. Across the city in a quiet suburb, Theodore sat in his rental car, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The invitation had arrived 2 weeks earlier in his mother's careful handwriting. Leo's getting married. He needs closure. Please come. Theodore had stared at the cream card for days, remembering the night 7 years ago when he had chosen fear over the boy he loved. He still carried the scar of that choice like a hidden tattoo. Leo's mother, Elena, had always been the quiet force in their family. She had watched her son withdraw after college, watched him date women he never touched, watched him finally whisper the truth over Thanksgiving dinner in 2018. She had cried, then hugged him, then slowly learned the vocabulary of acceptance. Inviting Theodore was her final, desperate attempt at healing what she believed was still broken. She never told Leo. The first time Leo met Theodore was on a rainy September afternoon at New York University. Leo, a shy photography major from a small town in Oregon, had ducked into the campus library to escape the downpour. Theodore, tall and lanky with messy dark hair and a faded band t-shirt, was arguing with a librarian about overdue fines. Their eyes locked across the circulation desk, and something electric passed between them. By the end of that week, they were sharing late-night coffee in the dorm lounge, talking about everything and nothing. Leo remembered the exact moment he fell. It was October, midterms looming, when Theodore had shown up at his door with 2 slices of pizza and a cheap umbrella. "You looked like you needed saving," he said, grinning. They talked until dawn about dreams, about the weight of being different in families that still used words like choice. Theodore had grown up in a strict Catholic household in Chicago. Leo's parents were quietly conservative. Both knew the cost of honesty. Their first kiss happened under the Washington Square arch at midnight, snow beginning to fall. Theodore tasted like spearmint gum and possibility. "I've never done this before," Leo whispered. "Neither have I," Theodore answered. And for the next 2 years it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. They studied together, cooked terrible pasta in the tiny apartment they eventually shared off campus, and learned each other's bodies with the careful reverence of young men discovering safety for the first time. But safety is fragile. In their junior year, a mutual friend posted a blurry photo on social media. Leo and Theodore holding hands at a campus pride event. The image spread faster than they could delete it. Theodore's father called that same night. The shouting Leo overheard through the phone still echoed in nightmares. Theodore hung up, looked at Leo with tears in his eyes, and said the words that cracked everything. "I can't do this right now. I need space." Leo had begged. Theodore had packed a bag and left for Chicago the next morning. The silence that followed lasted 6 months. Leo threw himself into his senior thesis, graduated with honors, and moved to Los Angeles to start over. He met Jake at a gallery opening 2 years later. Jake was patient, funny, and openly proud. Their relationship grew slowly, safely. When Jake proposed on the beach at sunrise last spring, Leo said yes because it felt like the right chapter. Yet standing in the hotel suite now, Leo wondered if any chapter could ever erase the first one. Elena arrived at the venue early, fussing over centerpieces and pretending her hands weren't shaking. She had rehearsed the speech she would give Leo later. "I thought seeing him would help you close the door." She didn't know the door had never truly shut. Theodore parked and walked toward the white tint glowing against the ocean. He wore the navy suit he had bought for job interviews, feeling underdressed and overexposed. Guests milled about in pastel dresses and tailored suits, laughter floating on the breeze. He spotted Elena first. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you for coming." He doesn't know yet. Inside the groom's suite, Leo's best friend Marcus handed him a glass of water. You look like you're about to testify in court, man. Breathe. Leo forced a smile. The photographer snapped candids while Jake waited in another room, calm and excited. Leo had no idea the man who once held his entire heart was already walking up the aisle to take a seat in the back row. The ceremony rehearsal the day before had been flawless. Leo and Jake had practiced their vows under the same arch that would soon hold real flowers. Jake's voice had been steady as he recited the lines they had written together. I promise to build a life with you, one honest day at a time. Leo had echoed the words, meaning them with every part of himself he could reach. Yet that night, alone in the hotel bed while Jake slept soundly beside him, Leo's mind drifted back to Chicago winters and Theodore's laugh. He remembered the way Theodore used to trace lazy circles on his back while they studied, how he would quote poetry badly just to make Leo smile. The memory tasted like salt. Theodore spent the night before the wedding in a cheap motel near the airport, staring at the ceiling. He had brought the last letter Leo ever wrote him, folded so many times the creases were soft as cloth. If you ever need me, I'm still here, it said. Theodore had never answered. Pride and fear had sealed that silence. Morning arrived with ocean mist and the scent of eucalyptus. Guests began filling the rows of white chairs arranged on the bluff. Elena greeted everyone with practiced warmth, her eyes scanning for Theodore. When he appeared, she steered him to a seat on the groom's side, far enough back to be discreet. Leo stood in the bridal suite with Marcus, adjusting his boutonniere for the 10th time. You sure you're good? Marcus asked quietly. Leo nodded, but his stomach twisted. Something felt unfinished, like a photograph missing its final exposure. The string quartet began playing. Jake walked down the aisle first, tall and beaming in charcoal gray. Applause rippled through the crowd. Then it was Leo's turn. He stepped out into the sunlight, heart hammering, and that was when he saw him. Theodore rose slightly from his chair, as if pulled by an invisible string. Their eyes locked across 30 feet of flower petals and hopeful faces. Leo's step faltered. The world narrowed to that single gaze. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. She had planned for surprise, not this raw electricity. Leo kept walking somehow. He reached the arch, took Jake's hands, and the officiant began. But every word blurred. Theodore's presence burned like a spotlight. During the ring exchange, Leo's fingers trembled. Jake noticed, squeezed gently, and whispered, I've got you. Leo smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Theodore sat frozen, fists clenched in his lap. He had come for closure, not to reopen every wound. Yet seeing Leo in that tuxedo, radiant and about to pledge himself to someone else, felt like drowning. The officiant paused for the vows. Leo opened his mouth, but the words he had practiced for months stuck in his throat. Instead, another sentence rose unbidden. He turned toward the microphone stand beside the arch, the one meant for toasts later. His hand closed around it before he could stop himself. The crowd murmured. Jake's brow furrowed in confusion. Leo's voice, when it finally came, was clear and steady for the first time that day. I need a moment, Leo said into the mic, and the entire gathering fell silent. Cameras that had been snapping happy shots now hovered uncertainly. Jake stepped back, giving him space, though his face showed quiet alarm. Leo looked straight at Theodore. 7 years ago, I loved someone with everything I had. He loved me back until the world told him it was wrong. He left. I spent years convincing myself I was fine, that I had moved on. I built a life, a career, and today I was going to build a marriage. Gasps rippled outward. Elena clutched her husband's arm. Guests exchanged wide-eyed glances. Leo continued, voice gaining strength. My mother invited that someone here today. Theodore. She thought I needed closure. What she didn't know is that I never closed the door. I boarded it up, painted over it, and told myself the room was empty. Theodore stood slowly, as if the ground might give way. Tears shone in his eyes. I wrote letters I never sent, Leo said. I kept every photo we took in secret folders on my laptop. I compared every man I dated to the way you made me feel safe, even when you were gone. And today, standing here about to promise forever to a man who deserves honesty, I realized I can't give it. Not while part of me still belongs to the past. Jake's face paled, but he didn't interrupt. The love between them was real. Leo had never lied about that. Yet it was a different kind of real. Leo turned to Jake. You gave me laughter and stability when I needed both. I will always be grateful. But I can't stand here and lie to you or to myself anymore. He set the microphone down carefully. The tent erupted in whispers. Phones came out. Someone gasped audibly. Theodore walked forward through the rows, guests parting like water. He stopped 3 feet from Leo. I came because I thought I owed you an apology, he said, voice raw. I was wrong. I was terrified. My father threatened to cut me off, to expose me to our entire church. I chose silence to protect you from that storm. I was wrong. Leo's eyes searched Theodore's face, seeing the same boy who once shared pizza at midnight, only older, wiser, braver. Elena stepped forward, tears streaming. I only wanted to help, she whispered. I never meant. Leo hugged her briefly. I know, Mom. But some doors only the people inside can open. He turned back to the crowd. I'm sorry for the shock. I'm sorry for hurting Jake. But I'm not sorry for finally telling the truth. Jake stood quietly, then nodded once. Go, he said softly. Be happy. The generosity in that moment broke Leo all over again. Theodore reached out. Leo took his hand. The string quartet, unsure what else to do, began playing softly. Guests remained seated, stunned but riveted. They walked away from the arch together, past the stunned guests, down the bluff path toward the ocean. The wind tugged at their suits. Neither spoke until the noise of the tent faded. I meant every word, Leo said finally. I never stopped loving you. Theodore stopped, turned. I never stopped either. I tried. God, I tried. Therapy, dating, moving to Seattle. Nothing filled the space you left. They sat on a weathered bench overlooking the waves. Leo told him about the years after the breakup, the depression that followed, the therapy sessions where he learned to name his identity without shame, the slow rebuilding in California. Theodore shared his own story, coming out to his parents at 25, the painful reconciliation, the job he took in tech that finally gave him independence. I read every article about you, Theodore admitted. When you won that photography award last year, I bought 3 copies of the magazine. I kept them in a drawer like evidence that you were thriving without me. Leo laughed softly for the first time that day. I kept your old sweatshirt. Still smells like you after all this time. They talked until the sun dipped lower, painting the ocean copper. Leo learned that Theodore had driven across 3 states to attend the wedding because Elena's invitation had felt like permission he had waited 7 years for. Theodore learned that Leo had almost canceled the entire wedding 2 nights earlier after finding an old, unsent letter in a shoebox. Back at the tent, Jake spoke quietly with the officiant. Guests began to leave, some offering awkward hugs, others whispering furiously. Elena apologized to Jake's family, her face etched with regret. Marcus stayed behind, making sure the caterers packed up the untouched cake. By dusk, Leo and Theodore walked back to the hotel. They didn't kiss. They simply sat on the balcony sharing a bottle of wine Leo had meant to open with Jake. I'm not asking you to pick up where we left off, Theodore said. We're different people now. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try again. Slower. Honestly, Leo looked at the man who had once been his entire world and felt the pieces click back into place. I'd like that too. They spent the night talking, not touching, rebuilding the bridge one honest sentence at a time. The following weeks unfolded like a second courtship. Leo moved out of the apartment he had shared with Jake, who handled the separation with quiet grace and even offered to help pack. Jake's generosity taught Leo that love could end without cruelty. Theodore stayed in Los Angeles, taking a remote position so they could see each other daily. They walked the Santa Monica Pier at sunset, revisited old playlists, and slowly introduced each other to their new lives. Leo met Theodore's sister, who had always known about their college romance and had kept the secret. Theodore met Leo's closest friends, the ones who had carried him through the hardest years. Elena visited often, bringing homemade lasagna and cautious hope. I thought I was fixing something, she told them one evening. Instead, I broke a different heart. I'm still learning. Leo forgave her completely. Some lessons, he realized, came wrapped in mistakes. One Saturday, they drove to the small Oregon town where Leo had grown up. He introduced Theodore to his father, who had softened over the years. The older man shook Theodore's hand and said simply, "Take care of him." It was enough. They faced small prejudices along the way. A waiter who stared too long at their joined hands. A neighbor who asked awkward questions. Each time they chose openness over silence, and each time the weight lifted a little more. Leo's photography began to reflect the change. His new series captured hands reaching across divides, faces learning to trust again. Theodore became his favorite subject, not posed but caught in moments of ordinary joy. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, they stood on the same bluff where everything had shattered. This time no guests, no arch, no pressure. Just the two of them, and a simple promise spoken without microphones or crowds. "I choose you," Leo said. "Not because I have to, because I finally can." Theodore answered with a kiss that tasted like forgiveness and second chances. A year later, Leo and Theodore hosted a small gathering on that same California bluff. No wedding cake, no formal vows, just close friends, family, and the ocean. They exchanged simple silver bands under the same arch, now decorated only with wildflowers they had picked themselves. Jake attended with his new partner, offering a genuine toast that made everyone laugh and cry. Elena sat in the front row, beaming with the peace that comes from watching your child choose happiness on his own terms. Leo took the microphone one more time, but this speech was different. "A year ago I stood here terrified of the truth. Today I stand here free because of it. Love isn't a single moment. It's the courage to keep choosing each other after every storm." Theodore slipped the ring onto Leo's finger and whispered, "We finally got our beginning." The string quartet played the same song they had played that fateful day, only now it sounded like celebration instead of interruption. Guests raised glasses to second chances, to mothers who meant well, and to the kind of love that refuses to stay hidden. As the sun set, Leo and Theodore danced barefoot on the grass, the Pacific glowing behind them. The boy from the library and the boy who once ran away had found their way back. Not to the past, but to a future they built together, honest and unafraid. The secret that once threatened to destroy everything had instead become the foundation of everything that mattered. After watching Leo and Theodore navigate years of fear, silence, and finally courage, I'm reminded that the bravest thing any of us can do is tell the truth about who we love. The story isn't about perfect endings. It's about imperfect people learning that hiding parts of yourself only makes the wounds deeper. The quiet lesson here is simple. Real love survives when we stop performing for other people's comfort and start showing up fully for each other. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it frees us to write a better next chapter. In the end, the greatest gift we can give ourselves and those we care about is the freedom to be exactly who we are.